Welcome back to Undulations. In this video, I'm going to cover some general things about littleBits technology and also some things about synthesizers, how they can go together. It will be particularly relevant to people that own the Arturia MicroBrute. I'll show you that for about 80 bucks spent on littleBits, you can drive some new and exciting sounds out of your MicroBrute. But first, a little bit of history. Maybe a year ago, I was watching a video on YouTube by Andrew Huang, and in that video he had two pieces of gear. He had the Korg SQ1, which is a sequencer, and that was driving a synthesizer, the O-Coast by Make Noise. And it had a big impact on me because it was beautiful sounds, very musical, and I was just captivated by the patching. All these cables going back, forth into different things, and it was very interesting to me, not something that I was that familiar with at the time, and so I wanted to learn more about it. So I did the logical thing, right? I ordered an SQ1, here it is, and then a no-coast. No no-coast. I didn't do that. Instead, because it was sort of intimidating and kind of pricey, instead I got a Volca keys. And that was kind of an ignorant thing to do, because while I like these devices, and you can hook them together by a MIDI cable, that is sort of like a hat on a hat, where this has got a sequence, this has got 8 sequences built in. Okay, so it didn't make a lot of sense. And the main thing is there was no patching. Okay, so what to do? So what is patching? It's best just to think of a device like the SQ1. It's got a port on it, and it's called the CV port. This is a CV out port, and when you run the sequencer, it will send a sequence in time of voltages. So CV stands for control voltage, and not to be confused with CC, control change, which is a MIDI thing. But you have this, it generates a sequence of voltages, and so the problem that I had is that Volca keys does not have a CV in. So I've got a CV out, I've got this, no CV in on the Volca keys. I didn't have a CV in my entire house. At some point I realized that for about 35 bucks, I could buy this, which is the CV bit or CV module for littleBits. It has got a CV in, so I can plug the SQ1 into this set of bits that I've got going here, and so now when I send CV out from the sequencer, it goes in and makes things happen over here. Coming out, going into that. Very powerful. The littleBits is able to do some different things that you might not really realize would be possible. That's awesome. I love making sounds and music with littleBits. It's a very elegant system. We'll talk about it more in a little while, but I don't really want to go in the direction of making sounds with the littleBits. I want to take advantage of this CV bit that it can also send CV signals out. we were using CV in from the SQ1. Now we're going to use CV out from the littleBits. And where are we going to send them? We're going to send them to the Arturia MicroBrute. So let's grab some patch cables and dive in. Okay, so just to be clear up front, I'm not trying to do a complete tutorial on the MicroBrute, but a little overview is important. It's got very classic sort of synthesizer, analog synth type things like triangle wave, square wave, sawtooth, and so you can get things that are bright like the sawtooth, and then there are these modifier knobs that change the waveform. So I'm going to go with something a little bit more mellow to start with, the triangle wave. The point being that you've got a lot of variety that you can do from the panel, but then the MicroBrute ships with 2 CV cables. And so you can do something like, I could hook the LFO to the filter, for example. And what that would enable me to do is to turn up the LFO, and you get a modulation from the LFO, the low frequency oscillator, not in terms of pitch, which is the default, but in terms of the filter itself. You can do other things, like I could send the envelope to the filter through here rather than through the panel, or do something like send the envelope to one of the other CV ends which correspond to these waveform modifiers. And so that's just some of the great things that you can do with the mod matrix as it is. And then just as an aside, there is one other CV out port. It's the pitch out, which is on the back and not part of the mod matrix, but you can do some quirky things. But the main thing is that I've found that if you turn the metal all the way up and the triangle all the way up, you can use it to generate noise. Combined with a cutoff, you can get some sounds you might not expect out of the MicroBrute. Okay, so time for some littleBits. This is the power bit. I'm going to hook a 9-volt battery to that and turn it on. Then we are going to send that into a dimmer bit, and I've added a chroma cap to this from DJ Tech Tools just to sort of make it more tactile. Then I'm going to add in the CV bit, but first plug in a cable. So I'm taking CV out from that, and then going into the metal on the MicroBrute. So that would be the triangle wave. And all this is going to do, just by way of introduction, is show that I can change the metal on the panel. Well, this allows me, the littleBits setup allows me to just change that over here. And for those of you familiar with the littleBits, the answer would be yes. You can put pretty much any sort of regulation sensor in there. So you could do this with a pressure sensor. Which is pretty cool. The most important next piece to put in is an oscillator. This is a littleBits oscillator. It's part of the Korg Synth kit that the two companies made together. And so the oscillator, you can choose either square wave or saw wave, and it has a wide frequency range. And so by putting an oscillator and a dimmer in line with the CV bit, I've basically made the equivalent of a LFO or low frequency oscillator here, where this controls the depth or the amount, and this controls the frequency. And one special thing about this is that the littleBits oscillator does go quite low, so I'll start with that. So that's frequency low enough to be thought of as more of a tempo, but then it can go up to audio frequencies easily. And this is something that you can play around with the different, like here's the square wave sound, quite different. And you're going to have mixtures once you're going into audio wave. It almost becomes sort of FM-ish where you're getting different components, and by carefully tuning some of the knobs, you get some great sound. And so I would say that this LFO setup is really nice, but if you were going to go that far, you may as well invest another 15 bucks for the random bit, which that can go in line basically as a source. I've got it going into the pitch right now, and so you can have a random modification, a noise modification of the pitch. Ranging from very noisy to just sort of glitchy. And then another excellent feature about the random is that you can put the oscillator back in line with that and turn the oscillator quite a bit down, and it can act as a random voltage. So this is sort of like a classic sample and hold situation. Which is something that can be nice to play around with. So that is the basic setup, and if you add all of that up, it is right around $80. Hey guys, well, time flies when you're playing with littleBits and a synthesizer, so I'm gonna have to split this one into two parts. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so that you catch the next one. Thanks for watching.